Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Saeed Danishman from San Diego Fertility Center. It's wonderful to be here. What we wanted to do today is kind of introduce ourselves very briefly, but then really address all of your questions and concerns, because I think in the process of answering your questions, we're going to cover a great deal of information about your journeys. We both have been in practice for over 20 years. Really, for us, it's a joy. I think the greatest moments are when we have parents with their children. Either we have reunions or they come to the office with the kids. That's sort of the greatest joy that we can have in our careers, because we've devoted ourselves to helping you become parents. I'm a father of 3 daughters. They're growing up. I'm going to be an empty nester soon because the last one's going to head off to college in August or September. So I'm kind of feeling a little sad about that. So, but then I'm feeling wonderful about being here, being able to help you become parents. So that's it.
I'm Dr. Susanna Park, and as Saeed said, we've both been in practice for quite a while, so about 20 years. Many times people come here and they're just overwhelmed. It's the most common sentiment people feel, so if you feel that way, you are very normal. And so I'm a big believer of simplify, simplify, simplify. Okay, divide the process into 3 parts. Part 1 is you guys. Get your sperm tested, blood testing, freeze your sperm. You come to San Diego, you give us your sperm, we freeze it, and you never come back. Okay. Part 2, find an egg donor. It could be your family member, a friend. We have an in-house egg donor. Make your embryos and freeze. Part 3, find a surrogate and transfer. It's very simple, so just keep it compartmentalized, or otherwise you'll be very confused. Okay? So you've been spoken to all day. We don't want to just keep lecturing at you. So this is a Q&A. Ask away any questions, and there's no such thing as like a silly question, so don't be embarrassed.
Dr. Park, can you repeat those 3 steps one more time?
Oh, sure, okay. That's a silly question.
Let's do it.
Okay, part 1 is testing on you guys. Sperm test and blood test. Just basic, in your hometown. Once we review that and we give you the thumbs up that everything is okay, you come to San Diego, you do the exact same thing again. But that is the real sperm we're using for the treatment. And that's it, you never come back again. Part 2 is we need an egg donor. That could be a family member, friend, but most of you don't have that, so we have an in-house egg donor. It's eggdonors, with an S.com. Free, just create a password, photos, videos, medical history, past donations, it's all there, very transparent. Create embryos, put them on ice. Part 3 is find a surrogate. So we don't have our own surrogates, and people ask us why. Just because of our volume, we can't find enough women. So we need these agencies. We rely on them to help find surrogates for us. And then we do the medical testing and do the transfer. Good?
So the surrogate will be found with a different agency.
Yes, but we'll help you. You can come with us with an agency, or we'll help connect you with different agencies based on what you're looking for.
Questions? Yes. Yeah, we have something called a success guarantee program, which means that until you reach your goal of having a baby, you don't ever have to pay the clinic again. So let's say you create embryos and we do a transfer and it doesn't work, or we do another transfer and you've now transferred all your embryos and you don't have your baby, then we do the whole process again without any additional clinic fees, or you can get a refund of all your clinic fees back. So essentially, we're invested in your journey to being able to reach your goal. Your success is our success, and that's our program.
Yep. Oh, sorry. Oh, is it a money question?
Yes.
Oh, we're very not good with the money, and we don't. It's not that we hide it. That's not our thing. But if you go upstairs, there's Ruthie in the purple blouse.
Yes.
She will tell you exactly how much everything costs. We don't hide it. It's just that we're not the best people to answer.
You got a question? Yes.
What's your take of fresh versus frozen?
Eggs.
Eggs.
Yeah. So fresh eggs are always going to give you a higher success rate, and there's a reason for that. When you look at embryos and sperm freeze well. Sperm, for example, it's a much simpler structure than eggs. Eggs are much more complicated structures. They have organelles inside, mitochondria, microtubules. So when you freeze them, even when they survive the thaw, some percentage of those eggs are going to be harmed, so that there's less of them are going to make it to an embryonic stage. So when you thaw them and you fertilize them, you let the embryos develop over the course of 5 to 6 days until they get to a stage called the blastocyst, and then you do chromosome testing. So frozen eggs, less of them make it to blastocyst. And if you have embryos that are good quality and chromosomally normal, one from fresh eggs, one from frozen eggs, when we transfer, the live birth success rates are higher with fresh eggs than with frozen. And again, that has to do with the structure of the eggs. So egg banks, what they do is, for example, if you choose an egg donor and we can retrieve 24 eggs from her, those 24 eggs are going to be divided between you and your partner, and you're going to end up with an average of somewhere between 5 to 6 good quality embryos. The transfer of a single good quality embryo to your surrogate in our hands has yielded a success rate of somewhere between 74 to 81%. Now, egg banks, the way they're profitable is they take those 24 eggs from an egg donor and they divide them into lots of 6. And they sell those in lots of 6. So the number of embryos that are going to make it to a stage when we can transfer is going to be lower, and the success rates are going to be lower. People ask, well, how much lower? Somewhere around 20% in terms of live birth rates. So you have to just know that. Now, for us, it doesn't make any difference whether we would work with frozen eggs or fresh eggs, but our responsibility is to make sure we educate and inform you before you make that final decision. So if you want to work with frozen eggs, that's fine. We just have to have a good plan to help you reach your goal, because if you want to have 2 or 3 children, it probably won't be able to be done with a limited number of frozen eggs.
So with if we're targeting kind of a fresh egg based on what you just said, how does that work in terms of timing, right? Because you would need to have, in terms of the, egg capture, right? And then fertilization and then implantation.
Okay, so we're not doing
Eggs can't stay forever.
we're not doing a fresh transfer. These are fresh eggs. So the donor will take the medicines to make the eggs grow. The eggs get taken out from her. That same day, your sperm will be defrosted, fertilized. You make embryos, culture them for 5 to 6 days. The embryos are then frozen. Then we prep the surrogate and transfer. So the question wasn't fresh transfer, frozen transfer. The question was fresh eggs versus frozen eggs.
No issues with freezing embryos.
The success rates are the same between fresh and frozen embryos. I know. It wasn't like that 20 years ago, but a lot has changed over the 20 years.
Yes?
Sorry, related question. Any issues around working with insurance or benefits like progeny,
Yep.
frozen or fresh?
So, some benefits, for example, progeny, carrots, some of their benefits, they have different tiers of benefits. Some of their benefits will only allow frozen eggs. Now, if you want to use fresh eggs, you can, but I think it's a supplemental cost.
Right.
And some of those benefits will only be with frozen eggs. So, if that's the only option, certainly we'll talk to you, but we'll also talk to you about the attrition rate from the number of eggs all the way to embryos, so that you have enough eggs to be able to reach a goal for creating your family.
So most guys will buy like 3 to 4 lots using your smart cycles.
Okay.
Yep.
So entering twins sounds nice. It's like also that is like
Yep.
how down.
So my mentality on twins is this is not my journey, it's your journey. Our job is to educate so that you make an informed decision. Okay? We are one of the few centers left that will transfer to, but here are the things you need to think about. Number 1, when I put in 2 embryos, there's no guarantee of twins. Half the times it's only 1. Okay? Then there's the additional 3% chance I put in 2, 1 can split, and now all of a sudden you have triplets. Okay? Not great. And we will recommend, though we can't force you to do something called selective reduction, where we send you to specialists and you go from 3 down to 2 or 3 down to 1. Well, let's pretend you have twins. Okay, so here are the issues. Number 1, finding a surrogate who's willing to carry twins. Less and less surrogates want to be pregnant with twins. 2, as you probably noticed, not all surrogacy agencies will work with you if you want to transfer 2. Okay? If your surrogate is pregnant when your surrogate comes in for medical evaluation, we are stricter. And I don't want you to take this as, well, she doesn't care if we're transferring 1, or but she really cares if we're transferring 2. It's not that, it's just that, let's say she has a history of mild high blood pressure. Okay, like, I feel comfortable transferring 1, but not 2, because twins in and of itself increases her risk of high blood pressure. right? So the medical screening for twins is harder and longer. Once you pass all of that, she's pregnant with twins, higher risk of blood pressure, diabetes when she's pregnant, and if medically they can't control it, or they're going to deliver your twins prematurely just to save her life. If she's on bed rest because she's having premature contractions and she can't work, you're on the hook for her lost income. And if she does deliver early, the biggest concern, of course, is the brain, the heart, the lungs, the intestines are not fully formed. So that may have long-term medical consequences for your twins that you really can't gauge at the onset. Okay, so why do I do it? I mean, I've been doing this 20 years, and I've done many twins, and most of them have done fine, right? So you're not my child, right? We're co-equals, right? So if I inform you of the risks and you say, I heard you loud and clear, Dr. Park, but we still want to put it too, I'm 100% behind you. As long as you fully understand the risks. Okay.
Yes.
Can you share your philosophy on what our approach should be looking at like a donor search? I know that you guys have an in-house donor program, but if we're trying to do our due diligence,
Yeah.
it makes sense for us to say, okay, we're going to look at STSC and we do in-house, but like, are we shortchanging ourselves by not looking at all the other databases?
Right.
You know, what should the philosophy be?
I mean, part of it is your sort of personal preferences in terms of what kind of donor you're looking for. For us, it's genetic health and egg health, meaning that our responsibility is to make sure we minimize the chance of genetic diseases with your children, and also maximize your chance of ending up with embryos, enough embryos for you to create your family. And we always like to have at least 2 embryos per child, because if the first transfer is not successful, we would like to have a second embryo to do another transfer. Now, one of the things to pay attention to is when you look at an egg donor's profile, one of 2 things can happen. Number one, she could be donating for the first time. If she's donating for the first time and she meets all your characteristics, then we do something called an antral follicle count, an immature egg count. And we do some hormone levels to get an assessment of how many eggs we're going to be able to retrieve from her. That antral or immature egg count is an important estimation of how many eggs we're going to be able to retrieve, and only about 20 to 30% of eggs that we retrieve, even a young egg donor like 24, 25, are going to actually make it to a healthy chromosomally normal embryo. So for a first-time egg donor, you can make an estimation. Again, we're going to be with you all along the way, so we'll be talking about this the whole time. Now, a second type of egg donor is a donor who's donated before. You may see that, let's say you go to an agency, they say, oh, this donor's done great. She's done, she's gone through a cycle a couple of times and she's produced 6 embryos. They've frozen 6 embryos. Well, that's not enough information. How many embryos did she produce is really important. She's produced in previous cycles. But what were the quality of those embryos? Because there are 2 ways in which we assess the quality of embryos. Number one is chromosomal normality. So they could have frozen 6 embryos, but out of the 6, maybe 3 of them were chromosomally abnormal. The second way is we have a grading system, a classification system. We grade the fetal cells, we grade the placental cells, A, B, and C. And that grade tells us what the rate of live birth is going to be. So if we transfer a single good quality AA embryo to your surrogate, that has an 81% chance of making it to a live birth. So for us, it's really important to have a discussion with you and support you in finding your ideal egg donor. One part of it is your choice, characteristics, background, looks, height, eye color, all of that. But the other part, egg health and genetic health, is our responsibility. So we want to make sure that we're very involved in your journey to finding your ideal egg donor. Does that help in terms of?
Yeah, I think the question also was, how much time should we also be focusing outside of your in-house?
I mean, I think we always say start with our egg donor database because there's a lot of information there, medical information. You can see the psychological report and you get an idea of what testing donors have to go through before they're qualified as egg donors. But we also come to us because we have a select group of our preferred egg donor agencies that we work with. We've been working with for many, many years. We trust them, and we can connect you to them, and so you can also get an assessment of them. So most intended parents take probably about a couple of months, maybe 2 months, 3 months before they find their ideal egg donor. Then there's no rush in this. You don't need to rush in finding your egg donor. That's an important part of your journey.
Does previous egg donation impact future egg donations and the health of those things? Is there a likelihood of injury or
very common question. So no, and the reason is all of you guys make new sperm all the time until you grow old. We women, we don't make new eggs. We're born with all of our eggs, and they're microscopic. And what happens every month is a cohort activates, and that's the immature eggs. And we call them antral follicles. So let's just say they're 20. If I don't take IVF drugs, of my 20 antral follicles, one is what nature selected to grow big and ovulate. And the other 19, they just die. What a waste. Right, so every month we waste tons of eggs, which is why women run out of eggs by the time they're 50. The only way to not get them to waste is by taking the IVF drugs. So these were eggs that, these are not our future, these are eggs that we're gonna die off anyway that she's using for the cycle, so in no way impacts her future fertility. But along the same vein, that also means I can't give her meds and change that number, right? A lot of people think, can you give me 40 eggs? I'm like, well no, her antral follicle count is 17, right? So that's your potential. That's why that antral follicle count number is really important as you look at egg donor screens. The other thing I want to say about private egg donor agencies, there's a cost factor. One, private egg donor agencies will charge you an agency fee, which is generally $10,000 to $12,000. Two, private egg donors want higher compensation than what we pay our egg donors. Three, a lot of them don't live near the clinic, so you have to pay these travel fees. But I think it's absolutely worth the money to find the perfect egg donor.
Yes, last question because I think we have 1 more minute. Yes.
How well can you predict the health of embryo or the chances of embryo going into lifeboat or implantation after the embryo is created?
Very good. It's actually, we have a very accurate way to predict the rate of live birth with the transfer single embryo based on the classification I told you about. We look at the fetal cells, we look at the placental cells, we grade them, and these are actually based on papers we publish over the course of many years. So we can give you a very good predictive rate of what the live birth rate is after transfer of single embryo.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.